Hey guys, let's talk General Hospital for today, May 11th, 2026. Happy birthday to my grandma. So, we start this episode with Willow and Chase. They're both out for runs, and we hear from Chase that he was hoping that he ran into Willow, these two. And they're out for a run or whatever, and they're talking. And next thing I know, she's talking about if this is your body after eating donuts for breakfast. We also know the whole time that they're out there having this conversation, someone is taking photos of them. And we know that that someone probably has something to do with Michael because Michael was going to exploit the obvious because it's obvious how Willow fawns over these men and think of them as her savior and kind of, like gets hero worship for these men. And we can see that she does that with, she did that with Michael. She did that with Chase before, she's doing it with Chase again. She did it with Drew. Like, we can see that. And so Michael probably don't even got to lift a finger because the obvious is happening, whether anyone wants to admit it or not. And so the whole time they're talking, someone is snapping photos, and it's funny to me. But they're talking about how Chase and Brooklyn want to adopt Phoebe, but kind of invoking the Quartermain name kind of makes it look like they're trading on their privilege, which is what they're doing and what they are willing to do because um Brooklyn basically said as much to him, when she approached him last week about it. And he's like, yeah, but he's willing to do whatever it takes. So, sorry, I'm watching an old episode of GH and Jordan is on my screen. Anyway, then we have Sunny, Rick, and Eva. I mean, excuse me, Sunny, Rick, Ava, and Ethan. And Sunny is asking Rick, at gunpoint, at unpoint, what you doing with Eva? Why would you betray me? And Rick is trying to say that he's not. Ethan, Sunny has Ethan take Ava out, and he continues the conversation with Rick. Come to find out, Rick was not being nefarious like I thought last week. He was buying a piece of artwork to gift um, Liz when they go on their trip together. And so Sunny and Rick are talking, and he's like, he want to trust him, but based on the history, it's hard, and how can you expect me to do it? And he was like, well, I know that I might have been going too hard too soon, but we got to keep working at it. I i don't know. I think Sunny did go very hard, and it's hard to come back from going that hard. But I digress, and I'm gonna just let it rest. Told y'all I got bars. Anyway, then we have Liz and Lucas is trying to figure out what's going on with Liz. But because it's the situation with Rocco, she is trying to be discreet about it. And she's like, everything is good with me and Rick. It's not any of that. And I can't really get into it. And she sees Rocco, and she goes and she's checking on him and his hand. And I'm like, girl, you are not settled in the least. But okay, girl. All right. So she's talking to Rocco, and then, Dante and Lulu are at Lulu's house, and Dante confronts her about Rocco and him being the one to shoot Callum and all of that. And they're talking about that, and he's upset because Lulu says she didn't tell him because he trusts in the system, and you know what happened to Michael, and I felt like that was a low blow, and that was also an excuse. You were doing what your boyfriend said and not considering the fact that your boyfriend is not your son's father and that you should have told him. But because I didn't even think, and I know that Dante is like the by the book kind of person, but even I didn't think that he would like send him, let the WSB take off, take this little boy off. I didn't think that. So the fact that she thought that he would do that to their son is crazy to me. Meanwhile, Charlotte comes to Carly's house under the guise of bringing some books for, um, sorry, bringing some books for um, Donna, and she's coming to see Valentine, and um, Carly is like, "Look, you need to stop worrying about your dad because you are making things worse. He's not here. He had to go handle something with Jack." And she's like, "Oh, it's about time." But Charlotte, I I get that she's not your typical teenager, and that because she spent a lot of her life on the run with Valentine and her family is pretty plenty shady. I understand that, and I understand that um she thinks she knows a lot, but she's still very young and very naive in a lot of other ways. And she do need to chill. Like, go be a teenager and let Valentine handle Valentine. Valentine know how to handle himself. He been doing it this long, and he will continue to do so. Even if he end up, back in custody. Look, he knew what he was doing. He know the risk he's taking, and you, little 16-year-old, you're not going to be able to save him from himself. Meanwhile, Jack, Nina, Valentine, and Drew are at the house. Drew in the room listening to everything that's going on. Nina done stabbed Jack. Jack is on the ground. Valentine's like, "What's in the syringe, Nina?" Nina was like, "Oh, it was Drew's medicine," but she doesn't tell him. She's like, "Oh, I gotta call 911." He get his gun and he leave, and he go back to Carly, and he tells Carly that, "Yeah, you were right. Nina double crossed me, but it kind of blew up in her face." And Jack said he didn't know. He seemed concerned about Jocelyn and where she was, and um, you know, she seemed concerned. He seemed concerned, and so she's like, "He's got to be lying." They don't know. No one knows, and yeah, it is what it is. So they get him to the hospital, and Nina is freaking out, and she's trying to probe Elizabeth, like, "Is he gonna be all right? Is he gonna be okay?" And Liz was like, "Tell us what happened. Tell me what happened." And so she's giving her information. Then she realizes she needs to call Willow. So she calls Willow, and Willow is like, "How did this happen?" She's like, "I can give Drew his weekly dose." And then she goes back to the house. Drew is starting to move, and then Willow walks in and catches him trying to move. So I thought he should have played it off for a little while and be able to like work up his strength to actually move, but whatevs. Meanwhile, Lucas and Liz are like, "Isn't it weird that two people in that house had a stroke? Isn't it weird?" But that was GH for today. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Hey guys, let's talk General Hospital for today, May 12th, 2026. So today we start the episode with Portia being at the cabin, Isaiah's cabin, that is, and Trina has driven up to meet with her. And Trina was like, "We have so much work to do." And Portia was like, "Work to do?" And she was like, "Yeah, we're planning your baby shower." In a normal instance, I would be very excited about Portia and Trina planning her baby shower. I believe the godmother should have planned it, but Trina should have planned it as well. But Trina been acting like a op where her mother is concerned, so I'm not necessarily all that thrilled about her planning it. And then she goes and proves me right because they're talking about the guest list or whatever. And while they're talking about the guest list, she's like, "Should we invite Jordan?" Why? I'm good if Isaiah and Jordan sit this out. I'm actually good with the bald menace sitting it out, but because it's his baby, and I know that's the thing now for both parents to be at the shower. Okay, well then the Isaiah and Jordan can sit this out because why are we having Jordan there? She's not happy Portia's having a baby with Curtis. Like it's it's stupid to me. And the fact that Trina is so wanting to have Jordan included is irritating to me because forget Jordan. But okay, so anyway, they're talking, and Portia also talks about, Trina's secret, and, they talk about how Trina is exploring music, and Portia is like, "This is what I always wanted for you." And then she was like, "You wanted me to be a singer. I wanted you to have options." She wanted to be able to cultivate a life for her daughter so that her daughter can be anything she dreams of. Like, and that's what she's going to do with the new baby, too. I'm sure of it. Portia is going to create a life because that's the kind of parent that she is. She's going to create a life for her child because she doesn't mind if she got to work hard so that her children won't have to struggle. And so that's what she's doing with Trina. Trina is everything that Portia wanted her to be. She is not afraid to try anything and, is willing to try because do what you love. And I find that, especially with Portia being a doctor, it's not easy to become a doctor, especially not a black doctor at that, a black female doctor. It's not easy. And so if she can try and if she, persevered, I'm on a soapbox. If she persevered to make it through um medical school and to become, who she is today, she wants to make it pay it forward and make it easier for her child. And that's what she has. And that's why what she was explaining to Trina when they were snowed in and Trina was talking to her crazy. And she was like, "Okay, I understand that I did wrong in this situation, but everything that I have done is so that you could be who you are. I gave you an education. I gave you everything. I gave you everything so that you could live your best life." And that's what, and Trina is the realization of that. And so I know that Portia is immensely proud of her stupid daughter. And don't, I'm calling Trina stupid, but just know that I actually do love Trina. Then we have Jordan and Curtis. Curtis is leaving because he's going to work, but he's going to stop by DA Turner's office to see where it's going with the investigation. And Jordan is like, "Look, I want this investigation to exonerate rate Isaiah. Like, that's what I want." And he's like, "Oh yeah, me too." But Curtis is a liar. And he goes into, "Yeah, because if he did do this, he's not going to be anywhere near my family." If I was Jordan, as soon as he said that, well, actually, when he was at the apartment the other day when he brought her home from the hospital, and he started talking about um Portia deserves to know, his stuff would have been outside. But definitely after he was like, he's not going to be around my family. Your family or your child? He didn't say his child. He said his family. Curtis, we see you. You're not well. Okay. Anyway, so after Curtis leaves, Molly comes over, and they start talking about Jordan and Molly start talking about the disintegration of their relationship, and I guess they come to the agreement that they're going to start working on their relationship, even though TJ has moved away and they're no longer together. I have a serious headache. Ugh. And it's my glasses because I feel relief when I take them off. But anyway, so then we have Charlotte and Justine and Isaiah. Justine goes over, Isaiah comes over, and um so Isaiah comes in at Justine's request, and she's questioning him about his whereabouts the night of the accident. And he's like, "Where are you going with this?" And she was like, "Oh, we just need a paint sample so that we can rule out suspects." And he's like, "Yeah, I'm not giving you nothing." Basically, his response is the right response because it's not your duty to give the police evidence against you. So his response was correct. Right on. The ball minutes didn't like it, and it was like he's hiding something. No, he doesn't have to cooperate with I'm not going to give you information that could. He knows he didn't do it. He goes to Lulu later and he tells Lulu that he was at her house at the time of the accident. So he didn't have anything to do with it. But no, I'm not hoping you incriminate me. Absolutely not, especially with his car being in the shop. Yeah, we're not doing that. No, I'm not doing that. And you can talk to my lawyer. And we find out when Justine reports back to the Bald Minutes, because why is she reporting back to him? But when she reports back to him, she tells him that the warrant got denied. They don't have any probable cause. So the Bald Minutes is on the prowl to find probable cause. Sir, this is not about you wanting justice for Jordan. It's not at all. Anyway, then we have Charlotte, Danny, and Rocco. They're at the boat house on the Quartermains, and Danny and Charlotte are talking about going to the Windermere to try and get some information from Sidwell. And Rocco crashes out and was like, "This is absolutely stupid. If y'all do this, I'm telling." And Rocco and Danny kind of get into it, and then Rocco is leaving, and he's like, "Charlotte, are you coming?" And she's like, "No." And those kids are stupid, all of them. Rocco is right, but they're still stupid. All the kids are stupid because he goes to see Britt. Yet again, stop falling out the Britt. But he goes to see Britt because he feels like he can't talk to anyone. Meanwhile, Britt had a conversation with Lulu earlier in the day, and they went at it because Britt she didn't know about Nathan wanting to send Rocco away, but she kind of agrees with him. And then Lulu is like, "Look, this is my child, not yours. You're not going to tell me what to do with my child," which is, right. But she keeps blaming Britt for Rocco following her. These kids are teenagers. They do what they want to do when they want to do it with no control from you all. You can't blame her because Rocco keeps following him, just like he showed up on her doorstep today. But she should have called his mom and told him that he had came over there. But I digress. Anyway, so then Dante and Nathan, they have it out because yeah, you knew about my son being involved in this and you never said anything to me. You stood in my face, and then he gonna try and talk to him crazy, telling him, "Well, you need to be a father and not be emotional." And Dante was like, "Who the hell are you talking to?" "Yeah, because who? You gonna tell me about my kid? You've been a parent for 5 seconds." And then, quiet as it's kept, little does he know, he ain't even really Jane's father. But yeah, that was General Hospital for today. It was pretty interesting. I'm a little bit annoyed about Trina asking about Jordan, because why do we have Trina advocating for Jordan so hard? Who is Jordan? F Jordan. But I'll see y'all tomorrow. Hey guys, let's talk General. No, let's talk General Hospital for today, May 13th, 2026. But anyway, we start this episode with Isaiah. He has made it back to the cabin, and Portia is excited to see him, and he is very mellow. And she tells him that Trina had came to the cabin, and he was like, "Oh, she came out here. That was a big step for her." And Portia is excited, because everything is falling in line, so she thinks. And so Isaiah then tells her that he had to go see DA Turner and that she called him down because she wanted his whereabouts for April 8th. And he was like, at first that day didn't mean anything to me. And then, it came out that it's the day that Jordan and Curtis got in an accident, and eliminate, um, she's trying to eliminate suspects or whatever. And he was like, he isn't going to incriminate himself, which no one should. Like, I'm not cooperating. If you have probable cause or whatever, then get a warrant, because I'm not going to, even if I am innocent, I'm not going to give you anything, like he said, to make you railroad me. And so y'all know what I'm watching as I'm recording this. This is crazy. I'm watching General Hospital on Amazon Prime, and right now it's Portia's and Curtis's wedding day, and Portia is in the room talking to Jordan because I'm getting very annoyed. I don't want to relive this, but anyway, sorry, off on a tangent. Sorry. But meanwhile, Curtis comes back and he tells Jordan that there's no warrant, and Isaiah refused to answer questions or whatever. And so basically what we see in this scene with Jordan and Curtis is Curtis talking Jordan into believing that Isaiah has something to hide. And so Jordan, then they somehow get to talking about her face, and he's like, "You got clearance to take the bandage off, but you haven't done so." And she was like, she hasn't done so because she can't bear to look at it. It's not, she can't bear to look at it. And then she goes and she takes the bandage off, and she's looking in the mirror, and she's like, "I gotta find who did this to me." Girl, you looking at who did this to you. You did this to you. Anyway, then we got Michael and Jacinda. They're at his office at Aurora. Well, yeah, at Aurora. They're at his office and they're talking. And then the PI comes there, and the PI has pictures, because I told you snap, snap, snap the other day was Michael having Chase and Willow followed, and it was in fact photos of Chase and Willow, and they had some good ones in there. But he was like, "I don't need like anything that can be misconstrued as being like innocent. Like, they can talk it away to be innocent. I need definite. So keep following them until we got definite like incriminating evidence." And I like this. I was at first kind of like, I don't know about this, Michael, because that's your cousin. You're gonna break her heart. But he's not actually doing anything. Willow and Chase are doing it, and he's just documenting. So I might say I'm on board right now with what Michael's doing, because Chase deserves it, and so does Willow. So yeah, do what you got to do, Michael. And anyway, so then we have Willow and Nina, and Willow is acting like she's the mother, and Nina is the daughter, and she's like, "I'm gonna handle it." I guess she like Nicole on Beyond the Gate. She's the fixer now. Muhahaha. Anyway, so she's telling, she's telling Nina, you need to basically go away, and she's right, because later we see Cullum comes, and Cullum is, trying to get, the trying to see what's going on with Jack, and he sees Nina, and everybody in the what is it? Law enforcement knows that Nina was there with Jack when this happened. So he's talking to Nina, and he's like, "Ayo, Nina, what had happened?" And so she's telling him the lie. And so meanwhile, Willow goes to Sidwell, and she's telling Sidwell what happened. And he's like, "How did this happen? This is happening because of your negligence. You supposed to keep that medicine under lock and key." She didn't tell him about how she had her mama injecting Drew, or that her mother even knows about Drew being injected. Speaking of Nina and Drew, they're literally on my screen right now. I'm dying. Anyway, so he is like, um, whatever. So, he calls Cullum there, and Cullum basically was like, "Well, Jack can't wake up then." So y'all think he about to kill Jack? I mean, he said it, but y'all think like it's actually gonna happen? He about to get rid of Jack Brennan for good, or like somehow his life gonna get saved? Anyway, then we have Britt. She is following Jack, listening to his conversation with Nina, and then Lucas comes back to the hospital, and Nina directs Cullen to Lucas, because Lucas worked on Jack when he came into the hospital. So she directs him to Cullum to him, and Britt is listening to that conversation, and she kind of intercedes and calls Lucas away, because she's like, "You can't even hide the fact that you hate Jack. I mean, hate Cullum. Like it's obvious that you don't like him, and he don't like him because he killed Marco." Meanwhile, he had a conversation with with Marco's father earlier, and Marco's dad is like, somebody close to him that he felt comfortable with stabbed him. He don't know that his dad suspects him, but he thinks that he should tell that Cullum did it, and then Sidwell will kill Cullum, and then when Sidwell will go to jail. You're very idealistic, Lucas, because that's never going to happen like that. I'm just saying. But then he's like, "Well, we can't do that because you need Cullum to get your medication." If only we could steal the medicine to get it re engineered. But you guys are incompetent. So here we are. Meanwhile, Ethan and Christina are at the Metro Court, and they're talking, and he wants basically to get a good word in with her, with Sunny, for her to get a good word with him, with Sunny and Ulrich, because he feels like now that he passed on that information to Rick, and it wasn't what they thought it was. Now he feels like Rick is going to have it out for him, so he's scared. But meanwhile, Alexis, BLQ, and Chase were meeting because they're talking about adopting the baby, and so he sees the baby. He's a deadbeat father, so he's just not gonna say nothing about him being um Phoebe's dad, because he's sitting over there watching, and he's not saying anything. They go over there and they're talking, and then Christina comes back to the table, and she's talking about how she was pregnant and all of that and everything. And nobody's saying anything, even though he quite literally knows Delilah and is probably the father of the baby. But that was General Hospital for today. It was pretty decent. Portia, I don't know what you're doing, girl, because you're acting like you're idealistic, thinking that everything is just gonna fall in place because you're pregnant, girl. Bye. But see you tomorrow. Hey guys, welcome to Nowhere. Let's Talk General Hospital for today, May 14th, 2026. So we started this episode with Justine and Sunny. Sunny was at the Court Gardens, and Justine walks up on him, and they sit and they're discussing their last conversation when she helped him with his Rick situation. Even though she may have, given him some good information or some food for thought as far as the Rick situation goes, but I wouldn't say that Sonny took it because he still jumped off the deep end, ended up pulling a gun on Rick and all of that. So did he take her advice? But he was talking to her, and she was talking about how she always likes to have all the information before acting, and he was like, yeah, you gotta trust but verify. And he was talking about how usually if you lie to him, that's a wrap. But with this Rick situation, he's giving Rick another chance because Rick didn't lie, like, to have his lie didn't have anything to do with Sonny. I still don't understand why Rick even lied. Like, that's your bro, right? Like, confide in him that you trying to buy some sugar for your sugar mama. Like, just say that. Like, it's not that big of a deal. But anyway, then we have Laura and Ezra, and they're talking, and Tracy comes, and Tracy is still complaining about the noise pollution coming from Sidwell having the flight path that is basically over her house. So they're talking about that, and she's trying to get something. What is she trying to do? She's trying to get Tracy to stand down. But getting Tracy to stand down is not necessarily easy. But she manages to do so. And Tracy was like, I feel like this is one situation where Luke would tell me to trust you. And she was like, yeah, he would tell you that. And so she said, I will trust you for now. So I don't know how long she got a clock on it, but she did say that um she will trust Laura for now. Meanwhile, Trina, Geo, and BLQ are meeting, and she's saying that she wants to do the singing thing, but she wants Geo to accompany her. But then, like, at the same time, she doesn't want it to seem like she's using nepotism because Brooklyn is Geo's mom, and we all know about Trina. Trina doesn't like to do like the easy way out. We saw how like that was one of the traits that she hated most about Spencer, because he didn't have a problem with using the fact that his grandmother was the mayor or that his last name was Cassadine. Like, he didn't have a problem with any of that. And that's not how Trina operates, because Trina was raised to work for everything she has. Even though Trina is privileged, and sometimes I forget that I no, excuse me. I think she forgets that she's privileged, because your mother has afforded you this whole lifestyle that allows you to be able to even pursue music. Like, who is getting out of college and not going to straight into the workforce? Like, I mean, she works. I'm not saying Trina doesn't work. She works for Ava. How much Ava pay her? Because Ava can be cheap, but she likes Trina. How much y'all think she pay her? But anyway, she works for Ava, so I'm not saying she doesn't work, but she's she's afforded the opportunity to go out there and like realize dreams. And that's what her mom always wanted for her. And she's privileged to do so because not everyone has that. Because Trina likely doesn't have any student loans because her mother has, paid for her tuition, even though I think I would have had to stop paying for Trina's tuition at some point because she got disrespectful a couple of times. But I digress. We move. Anyway, then we have Nina and Carly, and Nina is being pumped for information by Carly, and I don't even think she realizes it. But Carly is getting all the information she needs to know about about Jack from Nina. And they're going back and forth. I can't believe that they had a conversation this long because it's crazy. Because usually conversations with Nina and Carly break down immediately, but they're talking and she's trying to figure out like why did Jack and Drew have strokes within months of each other in the same place? She was like, maybe it's lead paint or something. And she's like, you're just trying to use this to take the kids away. No, but it's suspicious. Two people that are seemingly healthy within months of each other have mysterious strokes out of the blue in the same location. Tell me that ain't sus. Then we have Britt and Lucas, and sometimes I get tired of Britt and Lucas because sometimes I feel like for two doctors, they're stupid. Because Lucas is very idealistic, and so sometimes his conversations are like annoying. But basically, it came down to Britt thinking maybe she should leave town because it'll make everything easier for everybody. And he was like, but you won't get your medication that way. And then you will also have made, you will also have made Marco dying in vain because he didn't die for you not to get your medicine. He died for you to get your medicine. So if you die, he died for nothing. And so, you know, he kind of talks her off the ledge. But, in my opinion, and this is my opinion, you don't have to agree. But if you do agree, give me a green heart in the comments. But in my opinion, Britt can go. Anyway, then we have Rocco and Dante. They're having a conversation finally about, the information that Dante now knows about the shooting. And Rocco is asking his dad, like, you're trying to send me away. He was like, no one's trying to send you away. He was like, well, why were you and mom fighting? And he was like, me and mom are fighting because we are scared. We don't want Cullum to find out, you had anything to do with the shooting. We want to protect you, but you're going to stay here in Port Charles with your family so we can love on you. Like, and, Rocco expressed how hard dealing with the fact that he shot someone has been. Meanwhile, Dante is reassuring him that he's going to do whatever he can to make sure that Cullum never finds out that it was him that shot him. Meanwhile, at the gardens, at the gardens, Cullum shows up and interrupts Turner and Sonny, and he's basically asking for the evidence that they have for his shooting. Turner is like, yeah, no, you're not getting it. She stonewalls him and then calls Dante and tells Dante, look, you need to lock that evidence up tight because he won it and I don't want you to give it to him. Which is very out of character for Turner to me because Turner is kind of like the by the book kind of chick, but she won't trying to be the by the book now. And then we saw the preview for tomorrow's episode. Somebody tell me, is the bald man back on the stuff? I'm just asking. But yeah, that was General Hospital for today. See you. Hey guys, let's talk General Hospital for today, May 15th, 2026. So we start this episode with Brooklyn and Chase, and they are getting ready for a meeting with Alexis, and they're discussing trying to adopt Phoebe, and so they've determined that they are going to use a PI to try once more to try and find Phoebe's family, even though her daddy is up the street and he's just not saying anything weird. But yeah, so they're deciding on that, and they're discussing all of that and getting ready to meet with Alexis to discuss that. Meanwhile, Rick is at Madame Cherie. What's the name of that restaurant? He's there waiting for Liz, and Liz just keeping that man waiting. She ain't got no sense of urgency. But he's waiting for her, and Alexis comes up, and Rick and her are talking, and he's like, "Oh, you've been talking to my brother," and she's like, "Yeah, he told me you were lying to him," and he was like, "And what'd you tell him?" And she was like, "I told him that you worked too hard to, earn his trust, that you wouldn't, you know, do anything to jeopardize that." So, they're talking. They have a nice little kiki, and then once Alexis leaves, Liz finally shows up. But speaking of Liz, Liz is over at the PCPD with Dante, and basically what it comes down to, he's talking to Liz about his conversation with Rocco and how it didn't go well. And she's like, yeah, he experienced something traumatic, but something traumatic doesn't necessarily have to derail your whole life. And then they're also talking about the evidence, because they have to suppress the evidence because Cullum cannot get his hands on the evidence. So she's like, I made sure there's no record of him at the hospital. How come Liz can commit all the crimes all the time and get no consequences? And my girl ain't chief of staff no more because she was just trying to save her daughter from a serial killer. But I digress. That's not what we're here to discuss today. Meanwhile, speaking of my girl, oh, well, Liz went to dinner with Rick, and Rick gave her the painting that he lied to Sunny about. That's what he was doing with Ava, and she was excited. Meanwhile, speaking of my girl, Isaiah couldn't take Portia on a baby moon because he's getting ready for Derek's surgery. I am sick to my stomach. I don't even want to discuss this portion of the episode, but I have to. He is doing the surgery for Derek, so he couldn't take Portia on the baby moon. So they're there, they're having a nice dinner, they're talking, they share I love yous, and then they're eating dessert, and the baby's getting active. I guess he likes the cheesecake. Anyway, I'm sick to my stomach. I don't even want to talk about this. Meanwhile, Jordan and Curtis are at the house, and he's about to go to the Metro Court because he has a meeting with some Japanese clients, Aurora related. And, he's like, "Oh, I'll move it to lunch tomorrow." And she's like, "Don't do that. I got to work through this on my own. If I need you, I'll tell you, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada." So Curtis, before he leaves, he gets a call, and a call saying that Isaiah had his car repaired. So Curtis starts going off the deep end, and he's talking about, "Oh, I'm gonna find justice even if it's not legal." He's talking totally crazy. This is all so sickening to me. I can't even ugh. Anyway, so he's going off. Jordan looking at him. He leaves. He goes to the Metro Court. And Portia and Isaiah are looking, I mean, they're eating the dessert. And while they're eating the dessert, the baby starts kicking. And Portia puts Isaiah's hand on her stomach to feel the baby. And we see Curtis from the preview yesterday. Get your hands off my child. Curtis is going off. He outright accuses Isaiah to his face. Isaiah jumps up. Portia's like, "You're being ridiculous." And, she grabs Isaiah and they're leaving. And then Curtis is following behind him and he's saying stuff. And Isaiah pulls away from Portia and he turns away and he was like, "You better be quiet because you pushing me. I don't got no problem with you, but you making it a problem." And then next thing I know, Isaiah say, um, "I'm gonna be a better father to you, to this baby, than you are." And Curtis hits him in the face. First, I am not excusing Curtis for what he did because there's no excuse for what he did. And I hope he just sealed his own fate. But two things can be true at once. Isaiah should have never said that because that was too low. But that aside, Curtis should have never hit that man. And now if Portia fights to keep you away from her baby, then you have no one to blame but yourself. And then you also goes to prove maybe Portia was right for keeping Trina from you because you don't know how to act. Because I don't even know why we're here. Why are we here? You're with Jordan. You're where you want to be. You're happy. Why do you care that she's moving on with Isaiah? Why? I don't understand Curtis. Curtis needs to sit down and he needs to tell me what the heck is going on and explain it to me like I am slow and I'm not. Meanwhile, Carly and Valentina are at the house and she's telling him about Jack and how it appears Jack had a stroke. And Valentine tells her that, it might be, well, Cullum comes over and she's talking to Cullum. Cullum also saw a picture of Rocco at Carly's house. So I don't know if he might put the pieces together. But Cullum is like, "Jason didn't shoot me." He's telling Carly all of that. Valentine is listening. When he leaves, Valentine is like, "I think it might be best for Joss to stay wherever Cullum, wherever Brennan sent him." Brennan didn't send her anywhere, but he's thinking because Cullum is gonna have it out, he's gonna want it in blood. That's how he operates. Meanwhile, Jocelyn is trying to convince Nathan to work with her so that they can bring down Cullum and Sidwell because you're going to end up doing more hurt than good because you've formed these relationships and then once the prototype is finished, there's not going to be any more use for you. You and Britt are going to get killed or you're going to have to leave and then put, James and everyone through losing Nathan all over again, and that's just not fair. Which Joss is right, and I wonder if she's getting through to him. Meanwhile, Justine goes over to visit Jordan, and she takes her a yoga mat, and it's like, "What is it going to take for you to come back to yoga?" And Jordan was like, "I don't know what it's going to take, but I do know that I'm not ready." She's not ready to go back to her regular routine and go back into the world. Um, I can't even, I don't have the words to adequately express today's episode. I am so, and I think Isaiah's hand is hurt. And I don't, mind you, I'm not an Isaiah fan, but this is all ridiculous. Curtis is ridiculous. And his hand may be hurt, so he may not be able to do Derek's surgery. And from all I can gather, Derek's surgery is delicate and needs someone who studied this surgery to be able to perform it. And Curtis deserves to lose it all. And I hope that he doesn't get to see his child because he doesn't deserve it. He's dangerous. He's the danger. Because why did you hit that man? Why? That was GH.